Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Coffee and Contemplation brought to you by Spotlight Recovery. It is April 24th. We've got a reflection today talking about character defects, why admit them, where they come from, the importance of that for us in recovery. It's a really good topic that I wanted to chat about, so I'm glad I found this one for today. So let's get into it. Admit character defects. Character defects are personality qualities that can slow or block recovery and lower your quality of life. The Big Book describes character defects as the flaws in our makeup which caused our failure. These character defects often stem from one source: self-centeredness. It may sound dramatic, but it's absolutely true that unchecked character defects can cause you to relapse. Fear, exaggerated desires, unhealthy dependencies, and self-will are some of the things that step 4 and 5 ask you to identify and admit out loud. Of course, everyone, alcoholic or not, has character defects. To those of us addicted to alcohol or other drugs, however, these character defects can keep us from maintaining our spiritual condition, and that could lead us to the next drink or drug. To us, this is a matter of life and death. Almost all character defects come from a lack of acceptance, a lack of willingness, a lack of humility, a need to control, a deep fear, and a sense of shame. Action for the day. Identify any defects of character that you think keep you from being the person you want to be. Focus on 2 or 3 that you want to work on this week. Share your list with your sponsor or a recovery friend. Work together to find patterns so you will better know how to make progress. And thought for the day. The strongest principle of growth lies in the human choice, by George Eliot. And this inspiration is from the Hazelden Field Guide to Life app. Hazelden, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So, I like this reflection. I like them talking about character defects. If you've done or thinking about doing a 12-step program, step 6 talks about our character defects. Step 7 talks about our shortcomings. And we definitely need more literature and in-depth work on them, because typically these steps actually get overlooked pretty quickly. In the AA Big Book, step 6 is literally a paragraph, and step 7, I believe, is 3 smaller ones that precede it. And a lot of people, like doing the step work sponsorship, they just kind of rush through them pretty quickly. And I mean, that's the reason why the book Drop the Rock came out. Also highly suggested if you're doing this step work to take a look at that as well, as because it further expands on this concept. And it's just such an important concept because character defects or old behavior are things that still keep us tied to addiction. And so it's they can come into play when you have that old debate on, like, my addiction caused my character defects or my character defects caused my addiction. It's like a chicken or the egg question. In this sense, they can be in this kind of vicious cycle of, like, not knowing what came first. You know, when I use, I'm now not the person I want to be. I'm intoxicated on top of the fact that my brain is hijacked by my disease. So now my behavior or my character, my characteristics are now not normally who and how they would be and how I would want them to be. And then you can make the argument too then of, if I am in addict thinking, if I am really craving essentially and having my thoughts focused on addiction instead, then I will act the way that I normally would not, or a way that I don't want to, in order then to feed my addiction, in order to get me high or whatever, right? So you have these 2 potentials which can make this vicious cycle. And for those obvious reasons, that's really important. And it's really important to address and look at, especially to understand, because I think everybody is asked at some point or another, why did I do that? Like, looking back in a situation, why did I behave that way? Not knowing the answer to that question is scary, and it's not good. It's not good, and it's also normal. I think everybody's done that at some point. So I'm not saying that to bash you in any way, and so don't take it that way. But it's definitely not good if we are unknowing or not in control of our own behavior. I mean, like, well, then who else is? Like, nobody else is, and then we're just wandering through life hurting people, including ourselves, and mistreating others and mistreating ourselves, and then causing damage, and then there's this ripple effect. So it's wildly important. It's very important. And I think if more people spent more time and energy on this and doing this, then, they individually, we all may not need as much help as we do and as much support. The world may be a little bit nicer and happier. There may be a little less damage and a little less wrong done by and to each other. So anyway, there's my little hippie 2 cents on it for the day. So take with it what you will. Why can't we all just get along? But anyway, it's really important, and so it's good to dig into. So I was happy that I found this, and I like the way that they talk about it and give some more insight around it. Just because for us addicts especially, it's really important. And that reason is, and I love they talk about it in the 3rd paragraph here, everyone, alcoholic or not, has character defects, right? Ultimately, the difference is, for a drug addict or not, we will kill ourselves over this stuff. So the difference between the addict and not addict, generally speaking, is that this can end our life. So that's why this stuff is so important. And that's also why recovery, doing this work, having all this support and everything, it's also why they're so important. It's because this is life or death for us. I think non-addicts are able to go through life and behave these certain ways and engage in behaviors and do things or not. And the result is not them killing themselves with drugs. So that's why we need this stuff so much, right? So I like that they talk about that and mention that. Back to the beginning of it. It's just a great start. That's very true. Character defects are personality qualities that can slow or block recovery and lower your quality of life. That's another big, important part of this too, which you've heard me talk about before if you've been watching this series, is like, I came into recovery and I need this not just to get sober, not just to have a life without drugs and addictive behavior. I need to learn how to get the best quality of life possible out of this. I want to get the best quality of life possible out of this. And so just this realization and understanding that one of the biggest barriers to that is me and is my behavior is really, really important. Another big piece with this, I was thinking about it earlier, so I just want to mention it now so I don't forget it. Ultimately, why this is so important to look at and to do this work around our behavior is a classic CBT, right? Cognitive behavioral therapy. So talking about these 3 pieces on how, like, you look at the triangle and how we have our behaviors affect our emotions, which affect our thoughts, and vice versa. So about the connection between these 3 things: thinking, emotion, behavior, and how any of these, it can go any which way among these lines. So same like we were talking about before with the chicken or the egg, which comes first. Well, CBT talks about and breaks down how this can apply in all of these different ways. So my behavior can affect my thoughts can affect my behavior, my emotions can affect my behavior, and vice versa. So you can go around the triangle and go any which way and it's right. Like, there's no wrong way to be going in this. It's just understanding how these 3 are connected and how one can affect the other and vice versa. And that's really important, just as general good human skill and getting to know yourself and getting to understand yourself more, but especially for addicts, because so many of us have asked this question that we were talking about earlier: why did I do that? Why did I do that? How did I get here? The deeper addict question: how did my life ever get to look like this? These are really big, impactful questions that when we're in addiction or early recovery seem impossible to answer, and we feel lost and we don't know. And again, that place is really scary. So being able to answer these things and know them is really important. And then doing that work is so important because you then are removing this block from a better quality of life, right? And being able to act and behave more like the person you want to be. a person who is free from drugs and free from their addiction, who is genuinely choosing their behaviors more, that are healthier, better, happier, whatever they may be, whatever those look like for you, right? Because recovery is so individualized, you get to choose. So anyway, I really like those points and these things that they talk about. Another two in the second paragraph here. It may sound dramatic, but it's absolutely true that unchecked character defects can cause you to relapse. I have seen this time and time again so much. I just saw this recently with a client that I work with. They lashed out at somebody the way they didn't want to at all. It was just reactionary, and it bugged them all night through to the next morning. A chunk of that next day just being like, I don't know why I did that. I didn't want to do that. I don't want to treat people like this. And it really affected them. And they'd said that was the strongest urge they have had to use in like a month. That trigger of, I can't believe I treated somebody like that, was their strongest using trigger. I mean, that's a massive statement. And I've seen it countless times. I really have. So that understanding and the direct connection they make here in this reflection of our behaviors leading back to relapse is so important, because we can't really afford to relapse. I know I can't. A lot of us can't. We never know where that relapse can take us, and I just don't want to. So understanding this as another reason to do the work on myself is very important. So I really like that they talk about that. These roots that they mention are good, and it can seem, even I was second guessing them a bit first when I was reading them. But all these lack ofs, the need to control, sense of shame, all of that, I think for a lot of them, really, they can just come down to fear. I think all of those are connected with fear, right? I'm not going to go through them all because I don't want this to be too long, because I can do that. But just pointing that out and mentioning that, I think, is really good. And one big one that was standing out for me that I just wanted to mention was trauma, because a lot of addicts have trauma, if not all, arguably. And that wasn't mentioned on here, and that was the first thing that came to mind for me, because of having a traumatic experience. Then, of course, whatever that is, immediately gives us a fear of getting through it, or is this going to happen again, or fear of the future, whatever it may be. So then that gives us a massive fear. So then, in order to avoid or prevent this trauma from happening again, which is that classic response, right? Survival mechanism, your reptilian brain kicks in. It's just like, okay, we need to live, so we cannot go through that trauma again. That's already fear rooted. And so therefore, whatever behaviors I need to do to keep myself safe, I am going to do. So that's another point too, to understand this, is to also not beat yourself up about it. There's a lot of shame, and it says it there, that last point, a sense of shame. There's a lot of shame around character defect, and there shouldn't be as nearly as much as there is. And there's so much self-bashing and flogging and negative self-talk around this stuff. But I mean, think about it. If you have a traumatic experience, you therefore then learn or come up with a behavior to keep yourself safe so that experience does not happen again. Or the trauma is so severe, you are on autopilot and response in doing this behavior to ensure that that thing doesn't happen again. I mean, you're just keeping yourself safe. Like, this is ingrained survival mechanism. This is primitive instinct taking over. And for however long of a time, it kept you safe. So the terms of defect of character may not even be appropriate here. So if anything, it's important in a way to give yourself credit for being able to make it through whatever this was, knowing how to survive and adapt and take care of yourself. And then now you're at the point where you're just learning how to hone this into a behavior that you would rather engage in. into a behavior you want it to look like more. So I just think that's an important distinction and point to mention. Now, don't use that as an excuse to be like, oh, well, see, it keeps me safe, so I'm going to keep doing this, and then aimlessly hurting others or yourself. Like, don't use this as a justification to continue said behavior depending on what it is. And if you're not sure, ask your sponsor, send me a message, another recovery friend, whatever. Maybe bounce it off somebody so you're not calling your own shots. But it's important to know and be able to separate the difference between these two. So, but anyway, there's just a whole other point around this that I wanted to mention where maybe, it's 2024 now. Maybe this language could use a little updating or a little reframing, just something to think about and look at for yourself, because that's a really important piece with this. So they got the action, the thought there. I just want to wrap it up so I'm not talking for too long, taking up too much of your morning here. But I think the action is a good suggestion. It's like a mini step work version, which I think is great. The quote is fantastic. George Eliot quotes are great. Really like that a lot. But what did I want to finish with this? Yeah. So we start with this, admitting character defects, the initial point or the step, looking at our character defects. Oh God, I don't want to look at who I was, how I've treated people. Oh shit, can I just keep avoiding it and all that crap? We all feel that stuff, and I get you. If you want to do better and hurt others and yourself less and stay sober, no, you can't. You have to look at this stuff. You have to. But here's the silver lining. It's not lining, it's like silver padding. Like, it's way thicker than that. Is the fact that you now are embarking on a journey that will help you be the person you want to be. It's going to help you treat people the way you want. Build those better relationships, personal, professional, intimate, whatever they may be. You're just going to be more and getting more in touch with the version of yourself that you want to be walking through the world. So that's awesome. Like, that is a gift. That is great. That is a beautiful choice. Like it says in the quote, this is a beautiful choice that you are making. And now that you are liberating yourself from addiction, you are free to make. You are able to make. Earlier in the steps, they talk about the concept of self-will and self-will versus God-will. Well, here's a piece of self-will for you to be able to make this choice to behave how you want to behave, how you want to treat others, how you want to grow yourself. That's amazing. That's fantastic. So I understand the fear and the reservations about it, but look at the freedom on the other side of this. I mean, look at the potential that's waiting for you. For me, no brainer. Now, I'm on the other side of it. I've been doing this work for a long time. So I had that dragging my feet, and at points had people who needed to grab me by the collar and help drag me across the line. So I was there too, but can't suggest it enough for you. So there we go. I'm going to finish with that. So please, down in the comments, let us know what stood out for you in this reflection. What's helped you admit and work on your character defects? What were some of those big challenges around it you didn't want to work through? And then what came out of that? Where are some bits of freedom you have got out of doing this work? Would love to read and see all that in the comments. That would be great. Please do the rest of the YouTube things. Like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Just so you know, I do recovery coaching with people, and I do this work with people weekly. So if you're liking some of these ideas, but feel like you want some more help and direction on them, please reach out. All my contact info is in the description. Be happy to chat with you and see if I can help work you through some of this stuff, because it's a really amazing process. So anyway, reach out there. Also in the description are the rest of the ways that Spotlight Recovery can support you through recovery coaching videos, a podcast, newsletter, a blog, and then ways you can support us by donating, becoming a member, and getting yourself some branded merch. Everything's down in there. We've got a lot of stuff in that description, so please take a minute and read through it, because there's a lot there, more there waiting for you. So check that out, and thanks for stopping by today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Wishing you a blessed 24 in your recovery, being able to work on those character defects a bit and being more that person you want to be walking through the world. And we'll see you again tomorrow.